Norte.
She was about to say norteño. I'm about to tell you the favorite song and everything.
I know. I'm
They're like,
I'm
¿qué dijo?
no. Viejo, yo.
Yeah,
I'm a Tío status over here.
I saw you when I was 10 years
So I got ganas all of a sudden, yo.
Puras vaya.
I'm New Yorker.
Then
I'm
out
from
here. Oh, thank you.
Hola Mi Gente. We're back again on another episode of
Raices NYC. And on this episode, we have...
Norberto Briceño. I'm a content creator, first and foremost.
Okay.
So I would say that that's what I do. I make content for the community, for Voto Latino, but I also make content on my own, and I do history content. I do a lot of content about Easter eggs around the city, a lot of historical fun facts, and I put out a video every week. So I've been doing that for over 10 years at this point.
How do you find time in order to do all of the content creation that you do? Because you said, again, you're matching Voto Latino, you're doing your own stuff too.
Yeah. When I first started doing content, I started like back in 2013 at this point. Okay. I started off at Buzzfeed, and I was a writer. So I did a lot of the quizzes, logistical, different pieces of content that one comes to know Buzzfeed for.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've noticed is that like I specifically wanted to represent the community, and I wanted to talk about how I grew up. So there were a lot of quizzes and listicles about things that you only Mexicans will understand, things that only Latinos will understand. Mm-hmm. And those articles eventually like picked up steam and were shared a lot. So people would constantly be sharing these articles, and it was great for a while. And then from there, you kind of start doing all types of content. So it's not just doing blogs and not just doing articles, but you also start doing videos, and you start kind of like learning how to do a little bit of everything. While I was also doing stuff for work, mm-hmm. I was also doing stuff on the side. I was like, well, if this works for my job, if doing this type of content, understanding the audience and understanding how numbers work, if that works for my employer, why can't I also just do this on my own? Yeah. The thing about it is that you got to find the time for it.
Like scheduling time, managing it.
If you really want it, you'll make time for it. And that's the struggle, right? And the thing is, this is the youngest that we'll ever be. And so for me, I'm like, you got to be able to like make time after work. You got to make time before work. You got to make time during the weekends. If this is something that you're passionate about, you must make time for it. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I kind of consider it. That I got my 9 to 5, and then after my 9 to 5, I go to work for myself. But you make time for it.
Would you say there's some things that you have to sacrifice in order to make time for it? Because obviously, we have our own personal life and other things to do. But again, we really love doing this. We really want to do this other project. What are some things that you've said that you would have to sacrifice?
Sometimes you got to sacrifice your social life. Sometimes you got to sacrifice doing stuff that's just for fun. I think in my case, so the work that I do at Voto Latino tends to be a lot of heavy stuff, talking about what's in the news, breaking down bills that are going through Congress. So I do that almost every day. I read the news and I'm like, well, there's some bad news today. How do I make this digestible for an audience, for a Latino audience specifically? Mm-hmm. And so I like to think of the content that I do outside of work to be like my happy place. I do it because it makes me happy.
Yeah.
But it also allows me to focus on something that's not just heavily political. It's not just about trying to talk about all the bad news that's going on in the world. It allows me to just take my time and, research some fun facts about the city that I live in. And I think that to me is where I find it to be the most pleasing. So I don't really think of it as a sacrifice. It goes hand in hand with the work that I already do.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're not having fun, then what's the point, you know? And obviously sometimes it's not always fun. But with the work that you do, you find that time to create the content that you enjoy. Mm-hmm. And I think you found a certain niche of like history, especially about these facts from the city that a lot of people don't really know. And you found a way to connect your job with your creativity, and then also helping out the community, bringing that knowledge to them. You found a great way to mix all of that in together.
Yeah, I knew I needed something that was different from everything that I'd been doing before. I was one of the co-founders of Better Like on Buzzfeed. And it was one of those things where I was just like, you're constantly thinking about numbers, and you're constantly thinking about what's going to go viral, what's going to hit the most, what's going to get the most likes, what's going to get the most shares. That's something that you always have to keep in mind when doing content. But part of it is also the fact that you want to be able to tell a story. First and foremost, I have something to say. I have something to explain. I have something to teach. I have something that will make you happy. I have something that will make you mad. I'm making something that will make you sad. There's got to be different questions that you ask yourself before making that type of content. that comes before all the numbers, all the virality, all the shares. I approach things with, am I interested in this? The first question I ask myself, and you make the content based off of that. The numbers and everything, the analytics, it comes after. But I think first and foremost, you have to want to be able to.
Como hacerlo con corazón, you know? Yeah, like when you love doing it and you're passionate about it, the energy goes to the rest, and everyone understands that it shows energy.
Yeah, I've seen people in this industry, try to do content for the sake of fame, for the sake of virality. You got to have like a reason to do what you do.
Yeah.
And by that you're cultivating not just an audience, but a high quality audience, an audience that follows you, that really cherishes the work that you do. Having a small audience that appreciates the work that you do is better than having a huge audience of people that don't actually know you.
Yeah, an artificial type of vibe.
That was a lot.
Deep.
The more that we do this, the more we start running maybe like into people where you can start understanding like what's artificial, what's not, what comes from the heart. And I feel like you too, you start seeing who really is doing this because they love to do it, and who's really just doing it again for the numbers. How do you go by that? Do you still interact? Do you still work, or you just you get used to it already?
You kind of get used to it.
Okay.
And here's the thing about it too, is that like social media evolves. It evolves over time. Your audience evolves over time. The way that the platforms work themselves changes over time. When I first started at Buzzfeed, it was one of those things where it was like, it's the website first, then goes Facebook, then goes maybe Instagram, then YouTube, right?
Wow.
But I was there when all these platforms evolved on their own.
Yeah.
I started when Facebook didn't have Facebook video.
Yeah, you started very, very early.
Yeah, it was in the Wild West of the internet. You gotta keep an open mind to these evolutions.
Yeah.
TikTok wasn't a thing.
I think during that time was Snapchat, no?
Snapchat was coming through.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of like YouTube and Facebook. I remember those being like the two major platforms. You have to learn how to be open to the changes that are happening, and also the changes of your own audience. What is it that they like? We went from filming everything in landscape to going portrait. I was like, I can't do that.
You hated it. You want to show everything.
Why am I doing this? Like, I want to do this. I want to show everything that's going on. But then, after a while, you realize this is what the audience is now used to.
Yeah.
And you have to be perceptive to that. You have to be open to that.
We have our phone 24/7 with us, so we just, had to see our content that way.
Also, like showing that the information in such a short amount of time, because again, we're studying too. Like our attention span is really short, so you don't want to go watch the whole thing. So jamming all that information into maybe a couple seconds, 30, less than a minute or 1 minute. How do you do it?
Well, that's the thing about it. You want to be able to have the freedom to tell your story.
Yeah.
I'm like, here, I'm going to give you a 60-minute lecture about this tree that is in New York. Like, I wish I could be able to do that, but you also know that your audience is not willing to give you that amount. But having said that, I don't necessarily think it's about making it the most shortest piece of content ever. It's about finding like a right balance. You don't want to make something that's too long, but you also want to capture them from the first 3 seconds. You have to be able to know how to hook them in. Once you hook them in, then your quality needs to really deliver. And it has to have a high quality content. You need to be able to tell them, I'm going to take you on a really cool journey. Stick with me. And so from there, your video kind of has to be able to like progress and take them through a journey. Give them an actual narrative that will allow you to take the time that you need to tell your story. And I think that's what I tend to do now more like these days. It's not about making sure that it's 30 seconds or 45 seconds or less than a minute. It's about making sure that you hook them in and deliver something with high quality. And you realize that your audience, your watch time gets better as you do more of it. And as you find the way that things work for you and your storytelling skills, the more you refine them, the better outcome you get with your audience. Somebody once told me this, like, I write my script and it's like 2 pages long. You got to find ways to cut that down. You got to chop that up and like, is this necessary?
Yeah, like, told us about yourself. Well, I was born in 1990.
Let me take you back to my ancestors. Yeah, it's like, no. You gotta know how to tell your story in a very succinct way, but do it in a way that works for you.
hit the key
Yeah.
points.
Yeah.
I knew of you like way back from the so that's kind of interesting videos,
Mhm.
which I really do enjoy. I enjoy historical content, and a lot of the content that you do right now is in New York City. But when you go through your research to put these videos together, are you doing like a deep dive
Mhm.
just for yourself maybe, but then also getting a lot of the information so that you can pull what you can from?
Yeah, well, it's a combination of things. Yeah, back when, like in my college days, I was always fascinated by fun facts and specifically like Easter eggs in the city. I've always been curious about like there's this old house that's over 100 years old in this block that everybody walks by every day. And I don't know why, but I was always very fascinated by that. And I always have to give credit first off to the bloggers of those times from the 2010s specifically. That were doing a lot of this blogging, this travel blogging of like giving you historical context over certain things in the city. There were blogs like Scouting NYC, Ephemeral New York, that were independent bloggers that were doing amazing things. Untapped Cities is another one that they kind of give you like a fresh approach to the city. And I've always been curious about that and very interested. But there was never a way to do content around that. Like you couldn't do a 10-minute YouTube video on one piece of content, right? You couldn't do a Facebook video on that. You could blog it like these bloggers did, but there wasn't really like a channel to explore that. It's not until TikTok came and suddenly the short form video really started taking place and people could see videos that were less than 60 seconds. And then when Instagram Reels came in, it kind of fed into that. So then at that time, I believe it was around the pandemic, that I was like, let me just start, what am I doing? I'm just doing content. That's heavy, it's sad. So let me just go off and do some of this content that really just satisfies me. Things that I find kind of interesting. Let's see if somebody else finds it interesting. Write out a list of places that you want to go, places that you want to explore, things that you've always been curious about, and you start deep diving. Specifically, I love using the New York Times archive a lot. Specifically, their streetscapes and FYI blogs from back in the early 2000s to the late 90s. They have amazing information about questions that I have. What is this statue? What is this house over here? Why is there a black spot at the top of Grand Central Terminal? Like, it's stuff like that you're like, why do these things exist? And the New York Times had great blogs at the time that answered these questions.
Wow.
So I take a lot of information from that. I try to use reliable resources wherever I can. And I have to give a shout out to Atlas Obscura because they're also one of the ones that put out a lot of great curiosity content.
Well, it's always good to have real sources, things that are factual, and you bring that to your viewers. But I've noticed that recently a lot of your content is based in New York City. And so with New York City, I feel like you can never run out of like fun facts. You also do content wherever you travel or, back home. But the audience doesn't know that you're not originally from New York, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about a little bit about that?
Well, I'm a transplant. I'm an LA native, born and raised. And so I
know.
I mean, the way I always say it is I've been living in New York for 10 years, or over 10 years. I went to college, and I went to school at NYU, so I did my time during from 2006 to 2012, and then
I'm New Yorker.
Then out here, I've been out here again from 2020 up until now. But a lot of this stuff still, it's wherever I go.
Yeah,
there's something interesting to find about any location that you go to, whether it's going back home. Doing content in LA, which I've done plenty of, I think some of the most viral videos actually come from LA. Like, if I go to LA, I make sure that I'm going to do content out there. If I come, in New York, obviously there's so much to explore. When I go visit my family in Mexico City, it's just a part of me at this point that I have to do content. It's kind of like the passion that kind of drives you forward.
When speaking also, like, from coming from LA and now coming to NYC, do you also see like a growth in a lot of like Chicano creators here now, Latinos doing the sound, doing their content, bringing community together? Because I know from in the West Side in LA, everyone's always together. There's a lot of content over there. But now, do you see a big growth here on NYC?
I think what's helped a lot of the growth that's happened here in the city is social media. It's also the fact that a lot more people have the tools at their disposal. more than ever before. When I first started, you had to use DSLRs, you had to learn how to use zoom mics, you had to know your lenses, you have to be able to do color correction, you have to know how to use Premiere, you have to know how to do all these things to create something to go onto social media. These days, you got a phone, that's all you really need. You need a phone.
Calling us out.
You need microphones. I mean, but that's the thing about it. That's the way it is, and I think the most viral content on TikTok, on Reels, it's not something that's super polished, that's something that's super color corrected. It's not something that's overproduced. No, it's something that is literally done on somebody's phone. I think has created a good opportunity to showcase a lot of communities that didn't know we're out here to begin with.
No, even when we speak to some of our friends and people, now people didn't know we had lowrider cars here. Now markets are opening up here now, big time thing too. People were like, they're like, usually you just see this in other places like LA.
Even then, people are like, where's the Mexicans in New York?
They didn't even know there's a lot of Mexican community here.
Yeah.
Here in NYC, I mean.
I think like specifically like the Mexican community out here.
Yeah.
I think New York has this thing where it's very much Caribbean, right? It's Dominicans, Puerto Ricans. But I also think it's something that has grown over time. There's more Mexicans out here. There's more Poblanos out here.
Well, I mean, this Puebla, York.
People's conception of New York is very limited. It's like, it's just Manhattan. Definitely. And it's like everything is just based in Manhattan. It's like, no. There's Queens, there's Brooklyn, there's the Bronx. These boroughs have their own worlds that not many people know about or explore. And especially if anybody's out of state, like they don't know that these communities exist. And I think that's
such a different vibe. Definitely every single location is such a different vibe.
But it's enjoyable and it's cool to be able to like explore it and like get to know the people. It's what it's about. Yeah,
like literally after this, we're gonna be going to the placita in Knickerbocker. All these placitas came like as of recent, right? And like so people are these small businesses are, you know what, we can make not necessarily bigger profit, but by coming together, we can build a bigger audience. We can get our voices out there to a bigger community. In recent years, the Mexican community has really gathered together, not just Mexicans, but Latinos as well. And so I think with social media, obviously, it's helped so much more.
Yeah. I mean, I remember going to the Mexican, the Independence Day parade.
Yeah.
And I know, I was just like, where are these lowriders coming from? Because I've been in Whittier before, and it's like, Whittier's kind of known for having those lowriders, but I was just like, how'd they get all these lowriders out here?
And
it's kind of wild.
The funny story is they've been here for years, actually. Like, they've been here, like, they have the same stories. They're like, how they started and all of that, like, early 2000, and people don't know that, again, and also they said themselves, now that we have social media, we could text, we could all come together, or the clubs can get together. But again, this is something that we do have here in NYC.
Yeah.
We have all of them.
The most beautiful thing that's come out of these social media and like all these content creators is like, at the end of the day, it's like if you can pull the community together and build something from that and help everyone out, I feel like that's really great. But I did want to also talk about you recently went to Mexico, so do you want to talk a little bit about your trip and how that went? Because you did content creating, and it went well.
Yeah. Well, first off, like I love Mexico City. My family's from there. So I have roots in Mexico City, in Iztapalapa.
Shout out to Ciudad Mexico.
Para Iztapalapa, para todo el mundo. I've been having this like philosophical trippiness. I don't know how to call it. This feeling of like there's, the question of gentrification is always coming up. My hometown in Culver City is unrecognizable. I feel like every time I go back, it's like you're going back to a copy of what your home used to look like. The feeling of home is like slipping away whenever I go home to LA. Being here in New York, it's like, yes, I feel like a visitor. I feel like even though I've been here for a while now, it still feels like I'm not entirely like rooted here. But whenever I go to Mexico City, I feel whole.
We say that whenever you go to Mexico, it feels like that warm hug from, your abuelita.
I used to go back to Mexico to visit, the grandparents and everything. But now with my grandparents out of the picture, well, they passed away. It's one of those things where you kind of realize like where are my roots at. So, it's something that I constantly question. But I also know that, whenever I go back to Mexico and I see my cousins and I see my family and I'm with family,
Yeah.
suddenly I'm like, this feels right. I also feel like, you know what? Being in Mexico City, it's like, it feels like home. It was a great experience to be able to be in that and be in that environment and not necessarily have that pressure of gentrification weighing on me. But, I think that's where I'm at the moment.
How is your Spanish? How would you say?
Here's the thing.
From 1 through 10.
I, for the longest time, thought it was like 10 out of 10.
Oh.
Right? 10 out of 10.
He was confident.
I know my Spanish, but here's the thing. I speak that Spanish where I'm like, I speak it right, but then I go to Mexico and I start speaking it, and suddenly I'm
You're like, ¿qué
ocho. Hablo en español, pero lo hablo machucado. Some words, like, se me traban las palabras y no puedo, o sea, como que no se me da.
Como no se da.
Y I'm like, and then suddenly I'm like, I can't speak.
¿Cómo se dice?
I can't speak anything.
It'd be like that. You're like, la troca.
Yeah, suddenly you sort of revert into Spanglish. And I was like, what's happening?
La troca.
La troca. Somebody one time said el troque, and I was like,
troque?
what the hell?
I'd like to get into the segment that we do on our podcast too.
So thanks to Yo Sabo, the game, they recently gave us this game to play.
¿Cómo se dice pea?
Fea?
Pi. ¿Cómo se dice pi? Pi.
¿Cómo se dice pea?
Pi. Yeah, ¿cómo se dice pi?
The
Greens
little
and
green
peas.
one.
Yeah, greens and peas. Yeah.
Oh, peas.
P. Oh, P. Yeah, P.
Peas,
Like rice
right?
and pea,
Like
yeah.
rice and peas?
PEA. It goes like that. PEA. Alright?
You had to spell it out.
Doesn't care because
bro.
he's trying to say PE.
What is that? Suddenly I can't think.
It's chicharos.
I know that.
You knew that?
I was just testing you.
Oh.
Yeah.
¿Cómo se dice belly button?
Ombligo.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. ¿Cómo se dice wrist?
Ooh.
Oh, I know this word. Wrist. Hold up. Oh,
I would blank on this too, so I get it.
A dog. The dog. What do you say?
A dog?
Yeah.
Perro.
No. Sí, perro. Aquí tengo los perros aquí, ¿no?
Nah, I don't know.
Muñeca.
Muñeca. Oh,
Yeah.
no. I think I said dog.
Dog.
Perro. Perro Julio.
¿Cómo se dice celery?
My mom told me this. I gotta think. Mijo,
It's in there. Here's the thing. I think we're the same. It's like, it's in there.
Yeah.
You you'll, as soon as I say, you'll know exactly what
My
it
mom
is.
was telling me yesterday, mijo, come algo saludable.
Pones en los jugos.
Espinaca,
Mm-hmm.
zanahoria, na cilantro.
Not cilantro.
Just like it.
Yeah.
No,
Apio.
that was not even close.
¿Cómo se dice tablecloth?
Mantel.
Good. That's it. That's how you do it. ¿Cómo se dice skunk?
Is that the lacoache?
It's not a bad guess.
No. Esconca.
Esconca.
It's
Esconca. Yo. It's Rio, yeah. Yeah.
I was not gonna get that.
No. We did good though. That first one pretty positive.
That was a fun game.
We all did a good. Thank you to Yo Sabo the game, and thank you for playing with us.
Of course.
One last segment that we like to go into is: do you have a spooky, scary story or a paranormal event that happened to you?
Yeah, I thought like the most spookiest stories ever. Like, La Llorona,
Te jalaron los pies.
El Duende tickled your feet.
No, it's you know what's funny? I've heard them all, right? I think like
Experienced them all.
I didn't experience them all. Growing up, I always remember because it always happened to my uncles. It always happened to my aunts and uncles, right? Que le jalaron los pies, los perros están peleando underneath the bed. There's los duendes. My dad, I think, in Mexico City was playing soccer out in the street, and then un duende se le brincó to the roof y se empezó a sonreír. And everybody just went home after that. So it happened to everybody else. I've never experienced it. One of my uncles one time told me que se despertó and there were people surrounding him. Y eran como fantasmas y no sé qué. And then I experienced that one time. Like, I did wake up and I was like, yo, there's a bunch of people around me and you can't move. It's called sleep paralysis.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to say something that is a little weird, but I think there's a scientific explanation for everything.
Okay.
But I respect the stories of my aunts and uncles whenever they tell me this very traumatizing like ghost stories. This day, I know a couple of my aunts who had like these horrific stories happen to them, like especially que le jalaron los pies.
Yeah, a ti te van a jalar los pies for like testing them.
Tonight,
Yeah,
tonight.
I'm testing them
Oh,
right now.
see, scientific.
Yeah, science. Aquí está tu science. No, and it's something that like I respect. I'm trying to ask my aunt about it. Like, hey, like what happened? There's like a trauma there, and I try to respect it to not push too hard because it's like, you know what, that happened to you. Clearly, they don't want to talk about it, so I tend to leave it alone. But to me personally, never happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I think sometimes, trauma can represent itself in different ways. And I think that could have definitely happened.
Yeah.
But definitely respect it because I don't want nobody jalándome los pies tonight.
Like I shouldn't have played it. Science, nah, get out of here.
Yo play el persino de todas maneras, like
True,
just in
true,
case,
true.
just in case, para la protección. But
Audience.
I still do the sage, so I'm like, is it scientific?
Malas vibras.
True.
No, pero por en caso, ¿no?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything just in case.
Para las vibras.
Yes. Thank you again, for taking opportunity and your time to being in our podcast. Also, really appreciate it too. Any last words you have to anyone also that wants to start creating and also like planning on doing also like what you do or it's inspired also by watching your content.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in creating content, just start doing it. Don't overthink it. Don't think about the name. Don't think about the logo. Don't think about, I don't have the right camera. I don't have the right lighting. Don't think about any of that. Just start making. Consider every piece of content an experiment. It's always going to be a testing ground. It's a laboratory. You're always going to be testing out new things, creating new things, and nothing is final. The more that you create, the better that you'll get at it. Do it first because it's a passion and you have something to say. Second, trust your analytics. Yeah. Make sure you're looking at your numbers, but that comes after. First and foremost, have a passion to do it, just do it.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. I have a question too. I have a vague memory. Would you ever also in your BuzzFeed videos, you talking in those videos or you just wrote?
No, I was in them.
Because I have a vague memory of me when I was more younger, like around high school, watching you. And I always thought that was so cool. During that time, my mind was like, I really wish I could one day like meet people like this and all of that. Like, oh, it's cool to meet them. It's cool like that.
Yeah.
And now having like this chat, sometimes it's just like all coming to me. I'm just like, doors are right there. Like Adi always said. Like,
yeah, because it's like from our childhood, we've we've always we grew up in that era with social media and content like that. So then, I feel like with me and him and everything that we've done, it's like sometimes things just like kind of funny way of coming back. So it's like you'll do something or see something when you were younger. Yeah. And then now it's like coming back to us where we're like, we'll meeting you or going to places.
Sees that you're working for it and you love doing it. The universe gets you, and I'm just like, wow, like what is happening? Like I'm here just taking it. Like,
have you had like experiences like that? Or?
No, I mean, here's the thing. I think it's your blessings. I know that for me, I've gotten great opportunities just off of the work that I've been doing. It's meant to be. Like if you're doing great work, if you've got positive energy, you attract positive energy. And I think you sometimes have to will things into the universe, speak them out into the universe, and it'll come back to you. I've been fortunate enough that's happened to me before. Yeah. I got to one time interview Eugenio Derbez, and I got to interview, Rey Mysterio with kittens, right? And again, I'm like, these are my childhood heroes, and here I am you're in the room with them. Yeah. And you're like, this is great stuff, but it's also the fact that you've earned it. You put in the work to be in that room. And I think, the way to do it is making sure to do the work, but also to bring that positivity with you. And also will it into the universe. It will happen.
But yeah,
on that note, we're done. We're done. Thank you guys.